Most nutritionists recommend a balanced diet for the general population, but intense exercise is likely to increase the demand for certain nutrients. Here, we explain some of the best nutrients and supplements that you might wish to consider to help boost your performance. Totally legally, I would like to add. Number 1 has to be iron. Iron is one of the most important micronutrients for endurance cyclists. It's a crucial part of hemoglobin, which transports oxygen around the body. Low iron levels are detrimental to performance. Now, iron comes in two forms, heme and non-heme. Now, heme iron comes from animal sources, whereas non-heme comes from plants, and it's actually slightly less well absorbed. It's important to be aware of foods that are high in iron and techniques to help increase absorption, because the iron story is not just about how much you consume, but also how well you absorb it. For example, if you have vitamin C with iron, that would help you to increase your absorption, whereas dietary fibre and the tannins in tea and coffee inhibit iron absorption. Another piece of the puzzle is that because hepcidin, which is released by the liver to inhibit iron absorption, is elevated after stress and exercise, iron will not be absorbed very well after you've been training. Foods rich in iron include some red meats like beef, ostrich, kangaroo, oysters and chicken liver. For those who don't eat meat, there's also iron in legumes like lentils, soybeans, tofu, and grains, for example, brown rice, and other things like dried apricots, blackstrap molasses, and some fortified breakfast cereals. And it may be worth considering a supplement. I still take an iron tablet every second day. And I know for a fact that some sports doctors recommend that all racing cyclists, especially women, take an iron supplement because they found that it helps almost everyone to perform better. That could be because the base levels for normal were set too low for the average population, or it could be that greater availability of iron in the body helps performance. Either way, still take my iron supplement just so I can ride to work a little bit faster. Vitamin B12 has many functions in the body, but is predominantly for the natural, normal functioning of the brain and central nervous system, and for making red blood cells. Therefore, as with iron, it is a pretty essential part of a cyclist's diet. A lack of B12 in the diet can cause anemia, although it's not quite the same as the anemia caused by lack of iron. If you're deficient in B12, then that anemia causes the body to produce abnormally large red blood cells, which lose their oxygen carrying capacity. Not ideal. B12-rich foods include fish, meat, eggs, and dairy products, but there are no reliable sources of B12 in plant-based foods, except those that have been fortified, such as some plant milks and breakfast cereals. So if you follow a plant-based diet, you should consider taking a supplement if you don't have these fortified alternatives. A simple blood test can be used to determine folate deficiency. Also known as the sunshine vitamin. It's needed for the absorption of calcium and therefore needed to maintain healthy bone mass. So if you have a deficiency, that can cause brittle bones, which is something that as a cyclist, if you don't do weight-bearing sport, you might be susceptible to anyway. It has also been shown to play a vital role in the immune system, as well as improving muscular strength, which all sounds pretty good. Now, the best source of vitamin D is making it in your own cells using sunlight, and you also need to consume things like fish, eggs, and fortified food. But even with a well-balanced diet, you probably won't get enough vitamin D if you live in a country that has long, dark winters like the UK, or you don't get much sunshine. Or in fact, if you live in a very sunny country, but you wear super high factor sunscreen. And yes, vitamin D deficiency is a thing in Australia too. And in that case, you might like to consider supplementing with vitamin D up to 10 milligrams per day. I still do, even though I get plenty of sunshine riding my bike. Omega-3 oils are a type of essential polyunsaturated fatty acid, which we must obtain from the diet and we cannot make in our own bodies. Now, omega-3s are made up from two constituent fatty acids. We've got DHA and EPA, and please do not ask me to pronounce those names in full. EPA in particular has been shown to dampen the inflammatory response in your cells, and thus it can help to aid recovery and immunity. Another interesting effect of omega-3 oils is that they impact on your red blood cells, making them slightly more pliable so they can pass through smaller capillaries. Now, if you choose to supplement with omega-3 oils, it is important to ensure you get good quality capsules and that you have the correct ratio of EPA to DHA, or even choose a pure EPA supplement if it's inflammation you're trying to reduce. That's what I take, pure EPA, once a day. Creatine is a chemical naturally found in the body which helps to release energy in anaerobic efforts. Because of that, it's really popular amongst sprint-based sports, but for certain endurance cyclists, it can also be beneficial. Road events, of course, include repeated sprints, just when you're attacking or covering attacks. But the trade-off is that it promotes the storage of water, and therefore you might put on a kilo or two of weight in water if you take creatine. However, taking creatine in the off-season whilst doing a strength training program has been shown to increase muscle mass, making the training more effective, if you don't mind having extra muscle mass. And of course, it gives you plenty of time to convert that strength into cycling form before the season starts. Antioxidants are basically substances that delay cell damage caused by free radicals. So when we exercise, we put stress on the body. This increases the production of free radicals such as radioactive oxygen species, or ROS, which can cause harmful effects within the body. Now we need a balance between these free radicals and the antioxidants for normal physiological function. And in fact, you need those free radicals for the stress to stimulate a response to training, so you don't want to dampen the stress straight away. However, it is unarguable that antioxidants such as vitamin C and vitamin A play a role in supporting the immune system. Although we know this, interestingly, studies looking at antioxidants in isolation tend not to have a positive effect at reducing disease risk. However, we do know that consuming a diet rich in fruit and vegetables can have a protective effect. Whether it's down to the antioxidant content, we can't be sure. But either way, when you put stress on your body through cycling, eating more fruit and especially vegetables can only be beneficial. And one very popular antioxidant supplement is Montmorency cherry juice, which is also delicious. Beetroot juice has been noted to have a positive effect on exercise performance and more specifically may benefit us cyclists by helping to boost aerobic capacity. Now, not only are beetroots full of vitamins, minerals and phytonutrients, but they are also packed with nitrates, which are naturally present in a variety of vegetables, but particularly concentrated in beetroots, which can then be pressed and concentrated into a juice. When we consume the nitrate in juice, it gets converted in the body into nitric oxide. This nitric oxide has been shown to lower blood pressure, and because of this, it's considered a potential aid to improve performance. The main effect of nitric oxide is that it dilates our blood vessels, which means they increase in diameter. The wider the vessels, the more oxygenated blood can flow to the muscles, which is needed during aerobic respiration. And the more oxygen you have in your muscles, the more ATP, or energy, can be produced. Now, beetroot juice also has some effects at the molecular level, although that gets a little too complicated for me. And beetroot juice definitely has some very interesting effects on the colour of your faeces and urine, making them quite reddish, and it's a bit of a shock the first time you try it. You'll see what I mean if you ever try beetroot juice. Coffee is a staple in any cyclist diet. Whether it's cappuccino or espresso or even a flat white or a piccolo, many of us rely on it before we head out on a ride. But does it actually have any effect on our cycling performance? Well, yes, actually. Caffeine has been shown to improve performance in almost all types of exercise, from sprints to ultra-endurance events. We actually thought we would put it to the test in our very own GCN experiment. For example, maybe 2 attempts at a 5-kilometre all-out time trial. Tests on different days, one with a measured amount of coffee. The difference being that one would be caffeinated coffee and the other would be decaf coffee. Unfortunately, up to now, we could not get a single GCN presenter to agree to ride a bike after decaf coffee, so we haven't been able to do this experiment, but we're still working on it, so watch this space. I'd like to repeat that the most important thing for staying healthy and strong on the bike is to eat a balanced diet, and you should try to get your nutrients that way. Supplements should kind of be seen as the last resort, not the first thing you reach for. They are there to supplement your diet, after all, if you need it. With all of the nutrients we've mentioned, more is actually not better. In fact, too much can be really harmful. So if you're getting what you need from your diet, then you don't need to spend money on expensive pills. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that nutritional supplements are not regulated in the same way as medicines. There are good quality supplements and bad quality supplements, and you can't always trust the label. Neither to contain the good stuff that you want, nor to not contain contaminants that you don't want. You might think that supplement contamination and the risk of testing positive is only a concern for pro athletes, but actually nobody wants to be putting unknown substances into their body. So if you do buy supplements, then get them from a reputable source, and in fact consider buying from a company that is Informed Sport certified. I do hope this video helps you to find that extra 5% or maybe 1% to reach your goals. If you have any more questions about supplements, please leave them down in the comments. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, share this with your friends, and if you want to see more about why it's so important to buy clean supplements, click down here for a video that Si made with Informed Sport.